everyone, and welcome to our YouTube channel, Moneyline with Nancy at TV. In case you're not a subscriber yet, please do subscribe. Just press the subscribe button as well as turn on the notification bell so that you can get notifications when we upload our videos. Don't also forget to subscribe and join, follow, like our other social media platforms. Of course, you're seeing it right about now. Don't also forget to share this video across your platforms. Enjoy the video. Mr. Akintunde Sawyerr is my guest. He's the Chief Executive and the Managing Director at NELFUND, Nigerian Education Loan Fund. Welcome to you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, welcome.
Hi, Nancy. Thank you for having me.
Yes, good morning and thank you for coming. Now, let's get started. We have a lot to chew. Since inception, NELFUND was established, of course, last year.
Yeah.
I would like you to give me a brief estimate of how much that's been disbursed, because I read different loan disbursements from you know, like almost all the time you disburse 20 billion to so amount of students. Can I have an overview of how much has been disbursed since you guys were created?
Okay, since we were created, since NELFUND was set up, we have disbursed over 22 billion naira in institutional fees.
Okay.
These are the fees that go to the institutions where the students who apply for loans from us actually attend. We've disbursed, as you probably know, additional funds for students' upkeep. So we provide a stipend of 20,000 naira per month for students whose loans have been approved to attend institutions. And in that regard, we've disbursed 13 billion, just over 13 billion naira.
Okay, that's for upkeep?
For upkeep, 13 billion. For institutions, 13 billion for upkeep, and 22 billion for institutional charges. In other words, funds that have gone directly to the institutions that students are attending.
So that's a total of 35 billion naira.
Approximately 35 billion naira has been disbursed.
So did this money come from the 50 billion naira that President Tinubu had promised, or where did this money come from? Because
so, you know, we've had a number of allocations of funds.
Yes.
We had 10 billion in appropriation. We've had 71 billion initially from TET Fund as funds that were reallocated. And we had 50 billion from the EFCC. These funds have come from a pool where those funds have been collected together. So it's not specific. In other words, we haven't said these funds are specifically from this pot. We have an account, we have funds in the account, and we disperse from the general reserve account for the disbursement of loans to students.
Yeah, I also do know that the FIRS, the acts that set you guys up, the FIRS is supposed to, there's a 1% of taxes from there, which I assume is a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. We haven't received any of it yet. But in truth, the president has facilitated for us to receive other funds pending the time that that's going to come through.
When are we looking at, perhaps this year?
Well, yes, I'm sure it will be this year because our needs are increasing. We're having applications coming through thick and fast. We're getting an average of 1,000 applications per day. Yesterday, we had a little over 2,000 applications. So the funds are there. His Excellency, the President, has assured us that we will be fully supported, or the students, should I say, will be fully supported in terms of funding, and we have seen him live up to that promise again and again.
Do you have an idea of how many students are on this scheme since inception? Perhaps, of course, you can give me those numbers, drawing from these figures that you just gave to me now.
Yes, so of course, you know, we know exactly how many students are on the scheme. So look, the first step for students who want to join the scheme is for them to register with NELFUND. We have 493,000 students, I beg your pardon, 496,000 students who have registered with NELFUND. We have received, of that number, 393,000 students who have actually clicked the button that says, I'm applying for this loan. So 393,000 applications, 496,000 registrations.
Yes.
Some people register and take their time to apply. Remember, though, we're getting new registrations every day and new applications every day. Some of those applications are direct, so they come in, they register, they apply directly. Others who had registered before are applying, sort of taking that forward and applying.
Okay, so disbursements to how many people from here?
So the total number of students that we've disbursed funds to is 261,000.
Okay.
So we've supported 261,000 students from the scheme. And that has gone, so if I just give you another figure, which I think should be interesting to you, we've actually disbursed to 194 institutions.
194 institutions. Of course, they are public institutions.
They're all government-owned institutions,
Federal
some owned by the federal. So they're federal-owned institutions and state-owned institutions, and they're not just universities. They're universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education.
Private institutions yet not on board.
The law that set this up effectively only allows NELFUND to disperse or receive applications from students who are attending government-owned institutions.
Okay. Let's talk about the timeliness and consistency of your disbursement, because I've also heard some students complain that perhaps they've also paid with their own monies before the school will now put up their names that they've received from NELFUND. So why is there a lag in terms of timeliness and consistency of disbursing? Because NELFUND is an agency that will have money. Whether I should leave my job, I come and meet you guys there and start working, because you will have capital which will come into later. So explain that.
So, there is not a direct connect between how much money we have and the speed of disbursement. Between those two lines, there are processes and procedures that we must follow. So remember, we're receiving applications. Those applications have to be verified by our evaluation team. We have to make sure that those applications are bona fide, they're genuine, and those who are making the applications are truly deserving of it from the perspective of their eligibility. Once we make that decision, we then send the list to the individual institutions that those applications have been directed to by the students who have applied. Again, the institution must revert with a confirmation that the list that we have sent to them is indeed an authentic list as far as they're concerned, and that the students are indeed attending those institutions. We're dealing with a lot of institutions. The speed of reaction is different. We're dealing with a lot of applications, a lot of students. The level of accuracy of their applications is different. There's never going to be a time when we're going to be dispersing funds to people based purely on a timetable. We're going to have to make sure that we carry out our due diligence and we observe what we're doing.
But doesn't that also negate the essence of why NELFUND was created? Because if you say you're not going to disburse on the timetable, you're supposed to assist the students, in terms of institutional needs and upkeep. Yeah. So if I'm getting my money when semester we're in the middle of the semester, it doesn't make sense.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
You're completely
That's
correct.
why I asked the question.
It's a good question,
yes.
But you need to remember that students don't all decide at a particular institution that they're going to apply on the same day. Students apply in time, some apply when it's late. Again, we can't control that. Some are making decisions, they're thinking about whether they really want this loan or not, and they're leaving it too late. That's the sad reality of life. We all make our decisions at different times. When you're dealing with hundreds of thousands of people who make individual decisions as to what they want to do, we have to be respectful of that. But of course, when the applications come through, we collate them, we batch them. So the first application and the last application within a particular window is batched for us to send to the institutions. Some applications come after that batch has been sent. And then, of course, people are anxious. I've suddenly decided I want to take the loan. It's a week to the starting of the institution. We still have to follow our process. We haven't set up any cutoff times. But, of course, even if we do that, we're still going to get people who suddenly change their minds and apply too late for a session. We'll do everything we can to accommodate that. The other point I'd like to make to you is that the starting dates of institutions, because of the strikes we've had over the years, because of the mismatch in timetables of institutions, also has an effect.
Oh, because that's actually where I was going to in terms of public institutions, the starting dates, resumption of semesters? Are we not seeing almost a uniformity so that it will also help you guys plan?
Yeah, the uniformity.
Yes.
So we're not a regulatory agency for the institutions. We are a fund. And I know that there's a lot of work going on within the Ministry of Education to ensure that some of this uniformity comes back. We're praying and hoping that there'll be a reduction in strikes. And I know that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, His Excellency has made a number of promises that 4 years will be 4 years. But there are lots of initiatives going on within the education family of the administration that are looking to correct a number of anomalies that have come up over the years. We're part of that, but we're not a regulatory agency. We deal with the students who the president has empowered to be able to apply for loans, receive loans, and go to institutions of their choice, provided they've been accepted into those institutions. But there's a limit to how much we can control, the timetabling.
I understand that. Sorry. Let's move over. I know that your institution perhaps is less than a year now. It will be a year this year, in just a few months' time, if I'm not mistaken.
It will be a year on the 4th of April, which is when
yes.
the president appended his
Yes.
signature. But we started the scheme on the 24th of May,
Of May.
2024.
So a few months down the line. But I also need to ask this question, and perhaps you start thinking of it, around the relationship between the student loan scheme and enrollment in higher education. Because part of the vision of the president is to give education, to Nigerians, especially indigent Nigerians that can afford this. But have you been able to look at if there's been higher enrollment in universities because of the student loan fund scheme?
So
I hope you understand.
I do.
I'm scientific
I totally,
in my...
I
so,
totally
yes,
understand your
yes,
question.
yeah.
So remember, I said that we started on the 24th of May.
May, yes.
That isn't the beginning of any session in any institution. So what the primary applicants for these loans are people who are in situ, people who are already in institutions. So the question of higher enrollments isn't the case because of when we started. We can only begin to see higher enrollments when the new session starts. So as we embark on the 2024-2025 session, we'll be able to see what the effect is. The loans we have given so far are primarily people who had already made a number of decisions. I'm going to study this course, I'm going to this institution, I'm going to, and they're already there. So that's not, we're not there yet in terms of being able to spot any trends. However, I can take an educated guess and say to you that the fact that the president has made these loans available is likely to inspire people who are going to drop out at secondary level to go on to get tertiary education. It's very likely because the proportion of people who don't go on into tertiary institutions because of a lack of funding is high.
Okay. How about digitally excluded people? Because I'm trying to get into the mind of President Tinubu, and for him to do this is that he wants to get people that can afford, the funds, and, how is NELFUND going to look at that in terms of, because you have access to internet first, then a computer, then you apply. How about for those that really want education? And that's why I asked the question earlier in terms of relationship between the loan scheme and high enrollment, if you see that. But I also like the way you answered the question. But I needed to drop it there so that you guys will start thinking about it, because I will ask you again next year or in coming months. So how do you, integrate the digitally excluded people?
Okay, that's a really good question, and I think it's a really fair question. The truth about it is that we made the decision to use a system that is totally faceless, in other words, without human intervention. Once we made that decision, we eliminated a great deal of graft, okay? But what we then did was, in effect, say that you can be excluded if you don't have access to a computer, an Android telephone. We recognize that fact, but the benefit in taking the human interface out far outweighs that. Having said that, it is extremely important, and I know the president is very, very keen that nobody is excluded. So today, what we are doing is we are going out to sensitize students to the fact that there is a loan scheme. We're going to introduce an initiative quite soon called the NELFUND Clinic. So what we're going to do is, as we go to institutions and to communities, we're going to tell people how to apply, what to do. But we're going to go with internet connectivity, and we're going to go with a number of devices, so that those who can't afford these rather fancy phones, those who don't have a laptop, those who have a laptop and a fancy phone but don't have money for data, we will be able to provide that in situ over a period of time at specific institutions or specific communities. Okay. That's our attempt to address the issue.
Okay, what is coming also to my mind, I don't know if you've thought about it, but I can give it for free,
sure,
is the USSD code kind of system, where we also see in the banking sector, perhaps anyone with a phone, even if it's an old phone, not as esoteric as ours here, stars, so this takes you to this, and you're able to, I don't know if you're considering that, but it's something you can look at with the Digital Economy Ministry. So
we're already looking to subscribe to a USSD code. I'm not sure how that
will work.
Sorry?
Yeah. Perhaps it will work, how it will work?
Well, it wouldn't necessarily help those who are digitally excluded. Of course, a USSD code can go to a normal telephone, and I presume that that's where you're going. But in terms of how that translates to an application opportunity or an application process, I'm not sure. Maybe you can educate me. The bottom line for us is that people need to be able to have access to a device. That device needs to have connectivity, because that's the only connection you're going to need to get this loan, the internet connection. And once we are able to cover that and go around the country and continually hunt for people who don't have this access, continually hunt for the people who don't have this access, we will begin to reduce the problem. Okay. Further down the line, I will say to you that at some point we may enter into partnerships with organizations that have safe locations around the country where people can go in and use a device within that safe location and perhaps have some guidance as to what to do. Because those locations, for example, banks could play a role in that, where we can actually have students.
I was coming to, and I have less than, I have about 3 minutes for us to end the show, but let me roll this in, talking about partnerships, so you can, coming from the partnership perhaps with private stakeholders, and I mentioned earlier on that this agency would need money as an ongoing concern in terms of capital injection beyond the budget allocation and perhaps the 1% taxes from FIRS. Then the issue around equitability of loan disbursement and the selection process. If you've also noticed that there's a part of the country that benefits from this loan scheme than others. I would also like to know how you are going to address the forthcoming challenge of loan payment and recovery. So if there's anything, and default, if there's anything NELFUND is putting into place to be able to address that. And I'm asking this question on the premise of, I've seen other loan schemes in other countries like the United States. Their loan scheme, I think, was created, whether in the 60s or 1949 or so, the UK, Canada, even in Ghana, and our neighboring Ghana also has loan schemes. So what are the lessons from those countries, as it were?
Okay, Nancy.
And anything to cover vocational studies, because all of us mustn't be doctors and, you know.
Sure.
Yeah, so very quickly.
Thank you very much. There are a few questions there, and I'll try to tackle them given the shortness of the time. In terms of the zones, so you're talking about zonal differences between uptake in loans in certain parts of the country and other parts of the country. I need you to really, I need us to really appreciate that the levels of need, the levels of financial need differ as you go from one part of the country to the other. Population differs as you go from one part of the country to the other. Acceptance of a loan rather than a grant differs as you go from one part of the country to the other. This scheme is going to need time to bed in. It's a zero interest loan scheme. It's a very, very friendly loan scheme because you don't ever pay back unless you have a job. If you don't have an income, you don't pay back. Some of this information we need to communicate with various people. In terms of default, I think we're working through a system where we have access through a GSI to the accounts of people who take the loan. So if people have money or they're earning or they're generating funds and they're not paying, we will be able to have access to that going down the line in the future, because we've got to recover funds for those who are coming through.
Yeah.
The other thing I need to say to you is that, yes, we cannot completely be reliant on a scheme that is just government dependent. In Malaysia, for example, government started a scheme, the private sector took it over, and almost the entire funding for their loan scheme is from the private sector. This is one of the reasons why transparency in what we're doing is absolutely critical. Because if people don't see what you're doing, if people don't see how you're making decisions, if people don't see how you're dispersing funds, nobody's going to put their money in it. We are very, very transparent about how we're doing what we're doing, and it's deliberate because we want to build trust with the investor community.
Okay, so that answers the question around lessons too that you've learned from countries.
It did. I tried to wrap everything in for you because you gave me such a short amount of time. But if you invite me back, I'll give you more details.
I will, because we're getting a lot of questions, and which we cannot take now. Of course, some questions are private universities not included. When are they going to be included? You answered it earlier. How can we confirm those who have been paid in the public institutions? Can the MD give procedure for applying for the student loan? Really? Go online. I mean, website for loan application. Okay. So many questions, but the MD has promised that he will come back again.
I will.
Yes. So, yes.
Do you want me to tackle any of those in particular, or have we run out of time?
Yes, we've run out of time.
We'll do it next
My
time.
director is actually saying, Nancy, you've got to round up. So I will see you again soon. We'll schedule
I'd
this
love to
again.
be back. Thank you very much. We need more time.
Yes, I've been speaking with Akintunde Sawyerr, who is the Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director of NELFUND, that's Nigerian Education Loan Fund. But before I go, let me also say that our February Business Clinic will be on Friday. So please, you know the drill. In case you don't know that, that's the flyer there. Just send a message to our WhatsApp number to tell us you're interested for us to admit you into the room. On Friday, we're going to be looking at how to make money from what you know. This is the February Business Clinic. So I'll see you all again tomorrow. I'll be here again tomorrow with another, perhaps interesting set of guests. I am Nancy Naji, be the best you can be. I'm going to change that you want to see. Bye for now. Thank you for making it up to this minute, watching the video. Thank you all. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Moneyline with Nancy TV. Like, follow all our other social media platforms where we keep you up to speed with fantastic interviews, as well as markets, personal finance, business, and economy information. This is the best place to be. I'll see you all again in the next video.